when did you first get into sales? Tell us a little bit of your background before we dive in.
Yeah, I got into like sales about 9.5 years ago. Learned all the negative ways, like all the old school tactics.
Yeah.
Working for Verizon here in the States, selling cell phones and
You
technology.
started off selling cell phones, and Verizon taught you some old school techniques. Give us one of those old school techniques you used to use. Do you remember anything?
Oh yeah. The assume the sale, or do you want this iPad in silver or do you want it in black? And the people
The old
like,
option club.
Hold on. I didn't say I wanted it. I'm like, okay.
So you say, you want the one in silver or black? And they'd be like, whoa. I didn't say I even wanted it.
Exactly.
So, all right. So you triggered a little bit of resistance. All right. So we're going to get into this. Now, if you're brand new and you're wondering who the hell this guy is right here, I'm Jeremy Miner. So I'm the chairman and founder of Seventh Level. And we're a company that helps sales professionals just like you watching. Okay. We help salespeople, coaches, sales management, executives, business owners really transform the way they and their teams are selling by learning specific skilled questions and techniques that work with human behavior. I actually wrote an article about that this morning, okay, in Newsmax coming out, rather than against it. It's a very important difference. These are known as neuro-emotional persuasion questions with the right tonality that puts your prospects at ease, eliminates sales pressure, and gets them to actually persuade themselves, which Rhode is going to talk about how he's doing that and what he's selling. We're going to show you how he's doing that to help you sell more. Let's get to the good stuff. So you started off, you started learning these cheesy sales skills from Verizon. We actually trained one of their big stores now. That's a whole nother story I'll tell you about. But some of their sales stuff was very interesting for sure. And so what happened from that phase? So you started selling cell phones. You did decent from what I understand. And then what happened next? What was the next step?
Did decent for a couple of years. Progressed as far as I thought I could progress. And then just got burnt out.
What caused you to get burned out though?
Just the constant fighting with just the prospects, pushing things on them. And it felt like I was doing mental battle all the time.
I know a lot of people always say it's like when you use traditional selling techniques that come to us, that it's like going into a boxing ring every day, and you might win the battle and make the sale, but you get mentally exhausted and you get beat up. So over time, you suffer burnout because those type of techniques, not only do they not work for the prospect that you're trying to sell to because they work against human behavior, but they're also working against you and how you as a human want to behave as well. That triggers resistance in them not to buy, but it triggers ultimate burnout in you that you don't feel comfortable always selling that way. You see the difference in that?
Exactly.
It's a massive difference, right? All right. So then let's talk about your journey, because I want to go real quick into how we transition you from B2C to B2B and talk about that sales process and what questions that you're using for that. So you got in with us. When did you start working with us? A year ago?
Yeah, it was a year ago in February. Yeah.
Good gosh, it was right before the COVID stuff, right?
Exactly. Right before.
What were you selling right before COVID? I can't remember.
Right before COVID, like besides the Verizon stuff?
Yeah.
Oh no, I came in fresh. Like right when I came
from
in.
Verizon to
that's when like COVID hit, and then it was just like, wow.
Well, you can't sell in any stores with COVID, especially in New Jersey at that time, because everything would have been locked down for several months.
Exactly.
So then you get into actually some of our accounts, because we do our services as well. And, right now, we have you selling for Brandon Kane, which is a huge influencer in Hollywood, selling his social media, like his branding training products like B2C. And you really crushed it. You did really, really well. But then we made a switch with Brandon and more focused on B2B with like SMB and large enterprise companies.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's talk about that shift. So we teach you how to do this with a B2C customer. Okay. Tell us about that experience. Like how did NEPQ, once you got into like the inner circle, the 3.0, all the training, okay, how did selling start to change for you mentally at that point?
Oh, like night and day. essentially it was no more boxing match.
Yeah.
It felt like it was the prospect and me boxing against the problems. So essentially,
okay.
Collaborative.
Did everybody hear what he just said? He said, instead of me like feeling like I'm in a box arena every day, like punching, like mentally exhausted, like pushing at the end of the day and burned out. Instead, it was like me and the prospect punching the problem they had or problems they had together and collaborating, working together as two people to solve those. That's a major difference in that way of thinking, because most salespeople are taught by companies and the quote unquote sales gurus that, you know, selling is all about you making money, you making a ton of sales, your agenda, which obviously that's important. That's why there's a business that has to make profits, has to solve problems. But when you come across that way, your prospects do what? Well, they punch back, right? They push back. So now selling was adversarial for you. You went against the customer to try to win them over to make money. And now it's more collaborative.
100%.
What's the difference in your success once you learn those questions to ask and how to ask them that make the prospect feel that it's you working with them and collaborating rather than you just trying to sell them something? How do they respond to you now?
Oh, night and day. They feel safer to actually tell me what their problems are. And essentially, if we can, because we don't know if we can help them solve them.
Sure.
Whereas before, it was me trying to slap a problem sticker on every customer or every prospect and assuming that the solution worked for them.
Right.
And that's how you get refunds and like chargebacks. And it was just night and day.
Well, it's very true. It's a difference. So it makes it where selling becomes enjoyable for you, right? A lot of people would ask me, like, you know, I was in 4 different industries in my 17-year sales career, and I would come in and I would notice so many people were burned out, and I would be with that company for the next 3 years, and people would like need to take time off, and they would need to do this and like all these things. And everybody always asked me, like, how are you so like dedicated? Like, how are you so disciplined? And I'm like, well, I don't go into a boxing match every day. Because if I went into a boxing match every day like all of you, then I'd get burned out too, and I'd have to take time off, and I'd have anxiety and frustration and stress about not paying my bills because I wasn't making very much money as a salesperson. But because I know how to get the prospect to persuade themselves and help them find problems they didn't think they had before we even had the first call, it causes them to view me as more of an expert or a trusted authority rather than just another salesperson who's trying to stuff the solution down their throat. And then they commoditize you. So because of that, I can come in every day and do the same thing because I enjoy helping people find and solve their problems. It's actually enjoyable. What's been your experience? Like, if you've made that mindset shift, because it's not just a mindset shift, it's also a skill level shift. You can have a perfect mindset, but if you don't know the skills or the questions, you're not going to sell that much either.
Oh yeah, 100%. It doesn't feel like work to me. It feels like I'm just having a conversation, and at the end of the conversation, like they solve their problem as a bonus, they want to pay me. So it's like, okay.
Well, yeah, you get paid well to solve problems, right? Everybody wants to get results. Like, they want to be here, right? All selling is how good you are at change. It's about how good you are at helping your prospects see that changing their situation and purchasing what you offer, your solution, is far less riskier than them doing nothing at all, staying in the status quo, and their problems never get solved, which is more risky. And when you're able to help them see that through your questioning skills that we teach in our advanced, NEPQ 3.0 trainings and, our Inner Circle advanced trainings that we do, the virtual training courses, then selling becomes pretty enjoyable.
Yeah.
Pretty profitable, I've heard. All right, good. All right, so you came to me a while ago, and so Brandon, this company you work for, that you sell for, that mainly sold B2C, was like, hey, we're having companies come to us, major companies, because part of Brandon's clients he already had was MTV.
Rihanna.
MTV is his client. Rihanna, right? Rihanna. He does all of her social media. Taylor Swift. I mean, some of the biggest names you've ever heard of in the entertainment profession, he does all of their social media. Okay. He's the best-selling author of Hook Point, How to Get 1 Million Followers in 1 month. He actually did it himself while he wrote the book just to prove that it could be done. And so now companies are coming in, like we're talking like large enterprise companies, and these are like $500,000 deals, $250,000 deals, $1 million deals, $2 million deals. And some companies are going to be even bigger than that. Now, the way you were selling him before was more of a 1-call close.
Yeah.
Maybe a 2-call close, right? Maybe 15 grand at the most. But when we're talking about selling products and services for $500,000 and a $75,000 a month retainer or $1 million deal, it's obviously not a 1-call close. Let's break down the difference for everybody as we've taught you how to transition from B2C to B2B. What's that process look for you like we've trained you?
It's different because when you're doing B2C, essentially, you're really just dealing a lot of times with one person.
Yeah.
So
or like a husband and a wife or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas with like B2B, you may start off at the top of the food chain, like kind of what happened to me where I had that call with the CEO during a discovery call. And
which is rare that you start off with the CEO of the company, but it happens.
But what was interesting was that she could not make the decision because there were other people that were influencing her in the company that they needed to be heard too. So
according to Forbes, I read an article a couple months ago, the average company in the United States of America, I'm not talking about like a mom and pop store that is like a laundromat that just has one owner, but the average company, SMB to small cap to mid cap to large cap size companies, has 6.8 decision makers. That's 7 people. That's not including all the people who might influence that decision, which could go up to 15 to 20 in large enterprise companies. We're talking about Fortune 1000, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies. So I want to make sure everybody understands that. So it takes not only the right questions, but you have to know how to ask the right questions to be able to navigate throughout the organization, that company, to be able to find out who the real influencers are and the decision makers and help get them on board. Otherwise, you have no control of that sales process, right? So that first call you did with the CEO, you got her. Now tell us about that call, because she came into the call thinking one thing, and 30 minutes later, what was she thinking differently? Tell us about that. First of all.
Very, very different. She wanted to spend, like, they had allocated the budget for this super big rebranding. And she got referred to Brendan by somebody else. So like Brendan had her skip the process, like unique. So she got to me and we're talking, and she's telling me about this rebrand, spending tons of money on this rebrand. Yeah. And by the time we were done speaking, we uncovered that, well, she may not have a business down the road. So essentially,
she had this budget that they were going to use down the road. They weren't necessarily ready to do it yet. Yeah. But then by the time you took her through the NEPQ structure and the questions of finding out what her real situation was, finding out what her problems are that she probably didn't even know she had, or maybe she knew she had one problem, but she didn't realize that she had 3 or 4 other problems. You helped her discover by your questions. And then most importantly, you helped her see the root cause of why those problems were happening and the consequences and ramifications of what will happen if she doesn't do anything now. And so by the end of the call, she realized that 6 months down the road, if they don't act now, there might not be a business.
Yeah. And so she actually, and this is what you taught me, the difference between B2C and B2B. Yeah. Even though she knows what the problems are, there's still people that need to be part of the process to be influenced.
Yeah, because why is that? So let's say with what you sell. So you sell a hook point strategy. So Brandon and team comes in, develops a whole rebrand for the company, hook points, and just gains companies like hundreds of thousands and millions of followers, which drives up the revenue, saves the company, does a lot of things, right? There's a big process that goes into that. Yeah. Okay. So with that, the CEO is not going to be implementing that strategy that Brandon's.
Exactly.
Who's going to be implementing that strategy?
Exactly. So that was the funny part where you had somebody who had their own thoughts on what needs to be done.
Yeah.
So we had to get a separate call with the CEO and the executive team just to see how they saw things.
That's because we have to understand. So let's say that you could, because of what brand and services do, the CEO is not going to implement a brand new branding strategy. It's going to be their marketing department. And who's the head of the marketing? Well, the head of the marketing department might want to have a different plan.
Yeah.
Or maybe they feel that this new plan is going to jeopardize their job. So they feel threatened, so they push back. Or maybe not even they like it, but maybe somebody in the IT department who has to reprogram stuff doesn't like change and is like, you know what, this is going to take us too long. We're going to be down for too many months. It's going to cost us too much lost money. And you lost a sale because of some programmer 3 levels down who influenced the decision makers of how much money they were going to lose because it would take a while to implement the strategy or program it or whatever they have to do. So do you see how in an organization, it's not just the CEO or the CFO decides, but it's all these other influencers and decision makers that might not give the ultimate decision, but they influence what happens. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's literally what happened once we got on that second call. That's when the one of the directors just said, I'm only here to be the skeptic.
Yeah, and I think you said that at the beginning of the call, the Zoom call.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So tell us about how did you react to that? So you get right on this call. The CEO, the first call was all in. I'm ready. Like, this is great. Like, we've got to do something now. You get on the second call and the executive vice president, or whoever it was like, hey, I'm the skeptic here. I don't think we should do it.
Exactly.
How did you react to that?
And not a problem, and just took some of the questions that we worked on and just started uncovering what was behind that. And that was to your point. She had her own strategy she wanted to implement.
Yeah.
And we simply worked through that and then found out that that's a question that I actually took from you. What would it look like if that weren't the case?
Yeah.
And then essentially she started to explore, well, it would be this, and that. And that just led down a series of questions.
So the first question is really like, that's not a problem. Now, you seem a bit hesitant.
Yeah.
What's behind that?
Yeah.
See how you do that? See how that opens them up automatically? The skeptic opens up and tells you how they feel. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And then once you had that buy-in, that emotional buy-in, then you took them through the structure of the situation questions that we teach you in the NEPQ virtual training courses, problem awareness. Now, what problems did you help even her? Because I think the executive, was that a her too?
Yeah, they were all hers.
Okay. So they are running the show over there. So you took her down this path where 10 minutes before, she literally didn't think she had any problems.
No.
But 10 minutes later, what problems did she realize she now had that she didn't really understand?
They realized that essentially if they didn't address these issues now, that has been going on for the last 6 months, if they kept bleeding the cash, they were already, I won't say the platform, but they're part of a really big retailer here in the States. And they were in jeopardy of being deplatformed if they didn't fix it.
Deplatformed by that retailer, which I believe was 50% of their company revenue.
Exactly.
So if they didn't get this fixed, that they didn't even know they had that bad of a problem until 15 minutes before you got on Zoom with them. If they didn't get that fixed, then they realized the ramifications. If they lose this one customer because the problem doesn't get addressed, they're pretty much done.
Yeah.
Now, does that drive any urgency for them to want to change and purchase your solution?
Most definitely. And that's what happened.
Yeah. Okay. Well done. Well done. Anything else you can tell us from that conversation that you picked up, once I started training you how to go from B2C to B2B that you just didn't know before that?
Yeah, we'd be here all day. There was so many things that you helped. It was understanding that you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And just because you've seen this problem, or somebody say something in a different conversation, this is a whole new conversation. So never assume that what it meant to Jeremy means the same thing to you. So ask them. And by asking them, that's how we got the buy-in from the entire team.
And that's two decision makers in that company that think quite differently.
Yeah.
But they're both making decisions. So if you can only get one on board and the other one's not on board, the chances of that sale going through, very slim. And you really have no control. And that's where you're like hoping and praying that something you said in that presentation is going to trigger them to magically want to buy. You know, we always call that hopium. It's a drug that so many salespeople take where they just hope and pray something they're going to say is going to trigger them to want to buy. And it's such a hard and unpredictable way to make a living as a sales professional.
Yeah. What was amazing was like at the end of the conversation, the one executive who said that I'm the skeptic, she looks at the CEO and then they look back at me and the skeptic asks me, like, what do you think? Do you think that we can actually afford to do this? Because we found out how much money they're losing. So it was amazing because then it wasn't even a sale. It was just, can you afford not to? And then they looked back at each other and were like, no, like send us the contract. And I was just like, okay.
Well, the question is like, you know, it's not my business, but we can solve these problems if that's what you want. So, you know, do you feel like this could be the answer for you to get you where you're wanting the company to go? You know, it's like you turn back around. So that's excellent. Send out the agreement. They pay in full. Boom. Big deal, right? Not a small deal. And a nice sized commission for you as well.
Yeah. And they want to do, like, it's crazy how it's not easier, but it's simpler because these companies have money. You're not talking to like some like broke, like, you know, Joe Schmo.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating that
it's different, but you have to know how to really ask the right questions to penetrate the organization, to understand who the influencers are, who the decision makers are, be able to ask the right questions to even get them all on a call with their busy schedules. How do you do that? You know, what was one question you asked them to find out who the other decision makers were that we taught you?
Very powerful question where when we're talking with the CEO was like, who else in your company besides you would actually be responsible for ensuring that these problems got solved? And then she started telling me who was involved. And it was like,
yes. Now, why would we want to ask it that way rather than most salespeople would ask it this way? Most salespeople would say, who are the other decision makers in your organization? Now, why do we not want to say that? Because a lot of times, I'm just telling you, a lot of times they're not going to open up and tell you everybody who is. They're like, oh, it's me and it's the CEO and the CFO. They don't think about the IT person who's going to influence them. They don't think about the marketing director that's going to influence them. So when you ask it in a different way and you say, so can you walk me through how your company makes these type of decisions to solve problems like this? That's one way to ask it. So can you walk me through how your company makes decisions on solving problems like this? Notice how we're talking about solving problems like this, not who's the decision maker, right? We're finding out who the decision makers are to what? Solve the problems they said they had. The other way you asked it was the same way you did. Tell me that again. I forgot it. I even talked.
Like aside from yourself, who else in your company would be responsible for making sure these problems you spoke about actually got solved?
Okay, so besides yourself, who else in your organization would be like responsible in, overseeing or being over like solving these type of problems? And what did you say? Oh, this person in this department.
Yeah, and 100%. And that's how we were able to corral everybody into one Zoom.
One Zoom, baby, and you close the deal. Now, had you not known those questions,
never.
What do you think would have happened with that deal?
No deal. We would have been playing the telephone game back and forth.
Yeah, and nothing probably would have ever happened, right? So when you make that switch from B2C to B2B, because obviously we train hundreds of different types of industries here at 7th Level, B2B, B2C, it literally, there's industries that we train now I didn't even know existed. Like literally did not know existed. I'm like, what? That's a product? I didn't even know about that. So it doesn't really matter. So once you make that transition from B2C to B2B, you have to learn even more additional skills to be able to organize and be able to collectively work through the organization to be able to influence everybody else. It's like, you know, I did an example call for our sales team about 8 months ago with the largest health provider, nonprofit health provider here in the Midwest. So Missouri, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Kansas, you know, all the farm states, right? Huge company here in the city, you know, Springfield, Missouri. And so I just did the sale myself and recorded everything. I was pretty rusty because it's been like 3 years since I've even done anything. Recorded everything, right? And then it's the same thing. So I had to like organize and go through the whole organization. And this company, it took, you know, 3 months for this deal because they have a whole board. The board only meets once every like 8 weeks. So I had to wait for the board, had to influence the people on the board besides the CEO, the CFO, the vice president of sales, the marketing director. Like you're talking like 15 people, 15 to 20 people. So those deals might take longer, but had I not understood how to do that and had the right questions to ask to help them see problems they didn't think they even had, that deal, even if it would have went through, would probably be taken at least a year. That, because of NEPQ, was shortened down to 90 days. That's the difference. When you can take a complex selling environment that normally takes 6 months, 9 months, a year, and you can get that down into 3 or 4 months, you're able to see a lot more prospects. You're able to make a lot more money, but most importantly, you're able to solve a lot more companies' problems. That's why we are in sales, to do that, help them find and solve their problems. Any last words of advice for anybody on here watching today? I'm going to do a training call here pretty soon.
Yeah. Anyone who essentially, whether it's B2B, B2C, A to Z, if you're in sales and you're not making the money that you want to make, it's simply because you do not have the skills that you need to actually make the money you want to make. And if you don't have those skills, I'd simply ask you one question. Why are you tolerating not having those skills? Because it's a choice. So if you want to sell other people and make more money and get them to not tolerate certain things, do not tolerate it in yourself. Just reach out to Jeremy, reach out to Bill, reach out to whoever. And learn these skills that you can make more money for you and your family.
Well, that's your biggest expense in life, is just your lack of knowledge of having the right sales skills, the right question ability that works with human behavior for you to know and have the skills to make 300 or 350 grand a year plus as a salesperson working for a company. I mean, the average salesperson in your industry makes 50, 60 grand a year. So what's the difference with Rhode compared to the average guy or gal? Is it his blue hat that he wears? Is it the cool books? Is it the cool books behind him? Is it his headset? Like, is it the success photo? And that's why everybody's buying? No, it's because he's learned the right questions to ask at the right time with the right tonality, with NEPQ, that sets him apart from everybody else in his industry and his sales organization. It's just his skill level. I mean, his glasses are pretty cool, but people don't buy just because you look cool, right?
No, you're right. Spot on.
I've had clients that just, you would look at them and you're like, man, there's no way that guy or gal could sell anything to anybody. And they, like, after 6 months, they are the number one person in their industry, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And then I've seen salespeople in other organizations that are not clients, that don't have the right skills, that look like freaking Victoria's Secret models, that can't sell themselves out of a hot, wet paper bag.
Yeah, it's insane. Don't tolerate it for yourself. Learn them.
Yeah. All it takes, learning the right skills, and you get paid exceptionally well. It's just like Michael Jordan said in one of his books I just read, you take 1,000 jump shots every day, but if your technique is off, if your technique is wrong, if it's not the right technique, you're never going to be that good. So you have to practice, but you have to practice with the right skills, the right techniques that work with human behavior. My man, Michael Jordan, got to meet him one day. All right. Rhode, thanks. Your pleasure to work with. Love working with you. Thanks. We'll see you soon on the Inner Circle call. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Hey guys, if you enjoyed these, here's another you can watch right over here, Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're going to help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.